This slow and yes, very stinky diesel Mercedes is also the greatest Mercedes ever made. In this video, I'm going to tell you why and also why I'm selling it. You can bid using the link below. What you're looking at is a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, more specifically the second generation of S-Class known internally as the W126. Now these were produced from 1979 through 1991, and this one is a 1984 300 SD. Now what does that mean? 300 indicates that this is a 3-liter, S is the body style, it's an S-Class, and the D means it's a diesel, which can only mean one thing, a game of ultimate luxury Mercedes versus tractor. This game is really simple, so what I want you to do is close your eyes and tell me, are you listening to the height of 1980s luxury and opulence, or a small piece of farm equipment? It is hard to believe, but these two sound pretty much one and the same. The heart of the beast is something very special, but even getting to the engine is a little bit of an experience because you reach for the hood latch, you pop it open, nothing happens. And that's because the 126 uses 2 hood latches. So you have to reach in on both sides by the grille and lift the hood open. But that's not the coolest part. The Mercedes hood has this large grille that protrudes out the front of it. It's one of the defining design characteristics of the car. The problem is, if I'm working on this engine, I gotta duck around this grille. And what if I want to work here at the back of the engine? It's not super convenient, but Mercedes thought of that and they incorporated service latches here, and now I can put the hood into service mode, lock it in place, and now it's near vertical. I can access everything super easy. Throughout its long lifespan, the W126 could be had in a huge variety of engine options, from silky smooth inline 6s to burly V8s, but this is my favorite of them all, the OM617. Now OM stands for oil motor, which is Mercedes speak for diesel. 617 is the engine code. Now a lot of people think that this is a 6-cylinder diesel. It's actually an inline 5-cylinder diesel, which is pretty cool in its own respect. And it's got a turbo bolted to the side of it. Now the horsepower, a whopping 125. Now why on earth would Mercedes slap a clattery and relatively underpowered diesel engine under the hood of their exquisite flagship sedan? The reason is because of something called cafe, and I'm not talking about a cute Parisian cafe where we can get coffee. I'm talking about corporate average fuel economy. Now, this was enacted by the US government in 1975 as a response to the 73 and 74 oil embargo. Basically, their goal was to create more efficient cars by forcing automakers to meet an average fuel economy standard across their entire lineup. Now, this was easy for companies like Toyota and Honda that had an entire lineup of very small and efficient cars, but it was much harder for the big 3 American automakers and of course Mercedes, who were producing these incredibly heavy and incredibly fuel inefficient luxury barges. Now, the response was immediate and pretty stark, if we're being honest. Companies like Cadillac and Lincoln almost immediately started downsizing their flagship cars. So look at like a 1978-79 Continental Mark V. It was 20,000 feet of chrome and 7-liter V8 engine. And then the 1980 Continental Mark VI downsized dramatically, smaller displacement engine, and kind of these weird proportions. And when you couple that with tightening emission standards, the American luxury automakers really struggled through the 1980s. You ended up with vehicles like the Cimarron, which were just rebadged economy cars with some velour and bits of shiny headliner and trim. However, Mercedes took a very different approach during this era, which was then copied by some of the big 3. You see, Mercedes had a long history of diesel engines, and diesel engines, albeit relatively underpowered and clattery, got exceptional fuel efficiency. And what that meant is you could have this enormous, highly crafted Mercedes-Benz that could still do in the real world 25 to 30 mpg on the highway, where the equivalent Cadillac would struggle to do 18 mpg. The obvious question here is, what is it like driving a 20-foot long Panzer tank made of the highest quality German steel with a 120 horsepower 5-cylinder engine? All right, I'll show you. So coming to a stop here, we are at a mile above sea level, so that's going to impact performance a little bit, and I'm just going to go full throttle. There's 3 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour, 10, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. To say that this is a slow car is a little bit of an understatement. This is we'll call it a stately driving experience as you kind of progress down the road. Now, the thing about these engines, and I do kid a little, is once you're up to speed, they are incredibly smooth and they do a great job of maintaining speed. Now, this engine does make a fairly respectable 170 pound-feet of torque, but the reason you buy the slow, clattery, and stinky diesel over the beautifully smooth gas engines Mercedes offered is simply because of durability. A lot of folks would argue this is one of the most reliable engines of all time. It is not uncommon to see variants of this engine with 600, 700, 800, even 1,000,000 miles on them before rebuilds. Now, that's not to say you don't have to maintain these engines, and I see this a lot on the forums. People think you can just run them without oil and run them on cooking grease and just drive the beans off of them and they'll last 1,000,000 miles. You still have to change the oil, you still have to treat them right, you may have to do glow plugs, you may have to do injectors. In my opinion, apart from being very overbuilt, one of the reasons these engines last such a long time is they require zero electronics to stay running. None at all. You could remove the positive and negative terminal off that battery, throw it away, chop the wires to the alternator, and this engine would keep going. Now, the glow plugs wouldn't work, the radio wouldn't work, nothing on the inside would work, but it would get you home. In fact, these engines require so little to stay running, there is no electronic valve for a fuel shutoff. It's all done by vacuum. And if you get a vacuum failure and you turn the key, the engine won't shut off. Which is why they've given you this little stop button to manually shut off the 300 SD. How crazy is that? Look, if you take nothing else away from this video, what I want you to remember is that Mercedes at this era were building cars to a level of quality and craftsmanship unheard of at the time and arguably unheard of today. These cars were built to last longer than anything else on the road. They were built to a higher quality than anything else on the road. They were built with an extremely high attention to detail, and we see that on the inside. Now, I know it's a cliche, but it's also 100% true. The initial sense of quality you get with this car is the door open and close. So you've got this plastic handle with this little chrome surround, and when you go to open it, the most satisfying little click, and then the close. One more time. And when you look at the fit and finish of all of the panel gaps, considering this car is now 41 years old and production technologies are nowhere near what they are today, it's unbelievable. When you pop open the door of the 126, you are greeted by these seats. Now, you'd expect them to be of the highest quality leather, but they're not. They're actually vinyl, which seems pretty down market for a flagship Mercedes-Benz. But once again, we come back to what I said earlier, building a car to be the best and longest lived that it can possibly be. And this material is called MB-Tex. Now, when the world ends, and it might end with a huge volcano or a massive flood, there are two things that will survive on this planet. Cockroaches, of course, and MB-Tex. This is as close to a military-grade vinyl I have ever seen. You'll see these cars completely clapped out, totally rusted, 395 million miles on the odometer, and the seats will look perfect because MB-Tex is darn right indestructible. Now, of course, you could spec these cars with leather. It was an option and it was available. But for me, to get the ultimate 80s Mercedes experience, it's got to be MB-Tex. Next up, I want to talk about this heavily padded armrest. This is a really cool piece of design because it's only attached on one side. It's attached here to the driver's seat. So when you move the driver's seat forward and back, the armrest comes with it. Now, it does fold up like you'd expect, and then it locks into place. To fold it down, you have to push this little button, and then the whole armrest will fold down back into position. Starting this Mercedes is a little bit of an experience. Now the key looks like a normal key, except it's got this nice little bit of texture on it, and of course the 3-pointed star, which is very cool. And when you go ahead and put it in the ignition, flick it to on, the sound of the 1980s, people. Now what you do to start this car is you wait for the glow plug light to shut off, and then you know you've got some heat into those glow plugs and you can start the engine. But you can also leave the key on even after the light's been shut off if it's really cold, to glow it a little bit more, to give some more help starting, and then you simply turn the key and the car glides into life. Now I love the way that this S-Class drives, because I'm a big fan of 70s and 80s American land yachts, and I love how they just kind of lumber and waft down the road, and it's like you're cruising down the street in Queen Mary. This isn't like that at all. It's very softly sprung, but it's also very well dampened. And what that means is that it kind of glides instead of floats. So yes, there is body roll, and yes, you are isolated from the street, but you don't get any of that kind of up and down excess body motion. It's very planted, very stable, and you feel very in control at high speeds, even going around bends, which you don't find in a 1970s Lincoln or 1980s Cadillac, which kind of do this as you drive around. This thing is planted, it's solid, and it makes you feel very in control. Here we go, coming up to our stop sign here. Onto the throttle, and there's the turbo. And now we're catching up to the car in front of us. I want to talk about the moonroof. Now, it is a fixed steel panel. It's not see-through on this 126, and you open it by pushing a button here on the center of the dash. But what's most surprising about this is you hear nothing as it glides open, nothing at all. And that's because Mercedes engineered it so that the motor is in the trunk with a cable drive that then meets the sunroof up here, but it glides open completely silently. We got to talk about the Achilles heel of this era of Mercedes, and that is the vacuum system. Now look, when folks say these cars are indestructible, they're usually referring to the powertrain. And I like to say that this car will always get you home. But there might be a lot of stuff that doesn't work. Vacuum control operates so many components of this car, from the door locks to the transmission shift points and harshness to the climate control. And if you develop a vacuum leak or 2 or 3 in these cars, a lot of things can stop working. Now, happily, this particular car has an excellent vacuum system. So when I push down on one of the door locks, the other 4 glide down immediately. Pull it up, the other 4 unlock. Same with the trunk. And when I turn the car off, this car actually can hold vacuum for a few days afterwards. So when I lock the doors or unlock the doors, all 4 work like they're supposed to. It's a really interesting system that was very failure prone. This Mercedes has a really cool climate control system. So you've got this little panel in the center of the dashboard and a little game of whack-a-mole. When you push one button, one pops up. When you push another one pops up. So those buttons across the middle control where the air flows in the dashboard. And then you have a wheel to adjust the automatic temperature setting. That's right, fully automatic climate control in this car. Now, like I said, if there's a vacuum issue, air's not gonna go where you tell it. But thankfully, the blend doors in this car work really well. This car has the original Becker Grand Prix radio, which I'm told are now worth quite a lot of money because most of these old Mercedes have had their radio swapped out with aftermarket units. Now the Becker Grand Prix is a really cool radio. It's got a little electronic readout. You've got a toggle for volume, but my favorite feature is not the automatic seek function. It's the type to tune. This is something that people forget with these cars, but if you push the little star button, you can then use the preset numbers to dial in your favorite radio station. A really handy thing and a quick way to find the best music out there. One thing that throws people off a little bit about this car is the window and the seat controls are switched. So your window controls, which you'd expect to be on the door, are actually down here in the center console, all 4 of them. And then your power seat controls, which you might expect to be down by the seats, are up here on the door. And one of the coolest things about this car, the memory seats. So even back in the 1980s, Mercedes offered memory 2-position memory seats on this W126. I love how absurdly large the steering wheel is in this car. Now, A lot of W126s will have a driver's side airbag, and later ones that came standard. They were pretty early on the trend of putting airbags in cars. This one does not have one, but it's such an enormous steering wheel, and I love these little nubs, and this is one of the reasons I think this car has an actual 80,000 miles, is on high mileage Mercedes this era, this little texturing will wear off and get all shiny, but this car looks good as new. The gauges in this car are very cool, very mechanical with these bright yellow needles. So you've got your fuel gauge, you've got your engine temperature, oil pressure, speedometer, odometer, trip computer, tachometer, and a clock, all with mechanical dials and scrollers. And it's just so cool. There is, however, one digital gauge, and that is for the outside temperature, which displays in Celsius. Now, this is an American car, American market car. We're here in the USA. We read temperature in Fahrenheit. This car reads it in Celsius, and there is no way to change it. I looked into it, read the manual. It is always displayed in Celsius. Pretty crazy. The lights in this car work a little differently than your typical car. So you've got your off position, you've got your marker lights, you've got headlights on, and then you pull out for front fog lights. And if this car was a European market one, you could also pull out for rear fog lights, but this car doesn't have the rear fog lights. But the interesting one are the parking lights. So to the left of the off position, you've got one arrow to the left, and this is for your left side parking lights. Now in Germany, if you were parked on the side of the road, you turn on your left side parking lights, people know where you're parked. Same thing for your right side. That's a really cool feature. Modern Mercedes still do that, but not a lot of Americans know what that's for. Something that's disappeared completely from modern cars, but is very much found on this car, is the electric antenna. Now it extends when the radio is on, goes way up high, and then drops on down when it's off. A pretty cool little forgotten feature. One of the things that's most surprising about this car is it's properly large. This is a big car, even by modern standards. It's not far off of a modern day S-Class, but the back seat space is actually fairly minimal. Now this is my driving position at 6 feet tall. My legs are pretty much crammed into the back of the front seat here, and headroom is just barely adequate. Now there are a couple of cool things back here. For example, you do have a built-in first aid kit behind the seats here, which is very nice. And of course you've got power windows and tons of ashtrays so that your kids can smoke. Now if you did want a longer one, you could of course gotten the L version, which gave you more rear seat space, but the standard S-Class surprisingly cramped in the back seat. One thing that is not cramped at all, however, is the trunk, which is positively enormous. It's just massive. So this car is a really long hood and a really big trunk and not a very big interior, which is very kind of old school way of building a car, but a couple of cool things back here. I love how easy it is to swap out taillights on a Mercedes. Just a couple little clips, pull them out, easy to swap out. You can really tell that they intended you to service this car at least somewhat by yourself, and they gave you all the tools to do that, including something we've lost completely by modern day standards, a full-size spare tire. A couple of things worth noting about the design of this W126. This car has got the wrong headlights in it. This has got the Euro headlights in it instead of the American sealed beams. Now the first owner swapped those out because he hated the sealed beams, as do I. However, I do have them new in box if you want to buy this car. And you'll also notice this is a large American style chrome bumper, which doesn't look as good as the European style, but it does really protect the car, as I unfortunately found out with a little bit of a parking lot incident. And sure, the bumper's a little bit scuffed up, but it looks a lot better than the other car. Let me tell you what, these bumpers really do their job, and it prevented any damage to the sheet metal, which I'm very thankful for. There is so much attention to detail in this car, like the locking filler cap, which is all done via vacuum. And when you open up the filler cap, you'll notice it's a great time to remember to check your tire pressure. And of course, it reminds you, diesel, please, for the love of God, put diesel in it. Now the fuel cap is Mercedes branded and has a little holder here so you don't forget it when you're filling up. Very, very clever. One of the reasons that this car rides so well is because the wheels are teeny tiny. These bunt style wheels are just 14 inches, which means you have a huge fat sidewall, your first line of defense against any kind of bumps. This is what we need to bring back, small wheels. What we can leave gone forever, please never bring back, are these chrome overriders, which was a very common accessory back in the 1980s. But they look dumb. This is such a beautifully 1980s Mercedes design element that was carried over across all of their cars at the time period, and that is the ribbed taillights. The idea with this is if these got covered in dirt or snow or mud or whatever, you've got more surface area for the light to shine through so that people can see them even if they're very, very dirty. Now the obvious question is, if I like this car so much, and I am so convinced that this is one of the best cars ever made, why am I selling it after just 7 or 8 months, especially when I thought maybe that this would be my forever car? Well, listen folks, I have the car bug like a lot of you guys out there do, and I only have so much dough in my wallet. And there's another car I'm looking at buying, so I think I'm gonna pass this one off to somebody else. And I think I'm definitely gonna regret that, because I regretted selling my last diesel Mercedes, and then I'm sure I'm gonna regret selling this one. But I know there's probably gonna be another one in the future. Maybe not as nice as this one, because this one is kind of unusually clean, but I think down the road I'll probably end up with another one. Well folks, there you have it. The Mercedes W126. Boy, am I gonna miss this car. I really think it's a fantastic piece of engineering, and I hope it goes to a good home, which is hopefully one of you guys. And if you're interested in buying this car, it's live right now over at Bring a Trailer with no reserve. So feel free to drop me a comment or a question, and I'll be sure to answer it the best that I can. But I think it's a really good car that's deserving of a really good home, and I'm gonna miss her. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. This has been Tommy. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.